Thanks, Ben, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Could we talk about your origin story, how you first got involved in health and fitness?
Sure. I was obese at the age of 18, left school, was then on that kind of journey of like, what am I going to do? Where am I going? And throughout that journey, I kind of looked at myself very critically and said, I didn't feel that I could be successful if I wasn't fit and healthy. And that's because I was going into the career of acting. Like all through my childhood, I'd been a child actor, been interested in the stage, all that kind of stuff. So I had my eyes set on, the big stage and kind of looked towards people that you would generally look up to in life, like Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, all that kind of stuff. And you're like, I'm not slim, I'm not athletic, I'm not. And I kind of then sort of said to myself, I needed to change. I needed to almost model my look on who I was looking up to, who I felt was successful in the fitness industry. And I think modeling can be a very powerful thing. Like, look to where you want to get to. Okay, what does that person look like? Let's get there. So I kind of woke up one day and I just went at it. I laced up my trainers, got out for a run, started eating more healthily. And you know what? It didn't really work. I wasn't that successful at it, and I spent all summer after school running, eating well, got on the scales, and I'd lost like 5 pounds in 5 months. Like, it wasn't going very well. And throughout that period of time, a few things were happening, and I remember having an argument with my brother one day, and I was like teasing him because I'm the older brother and you're allowed to do that. And he kind of said, look, you're not so perfect. And he basically like interrupted my pattern and was like, you need to think about what you're doing. Like, you're on this weight loss journey but nothing's working. Like, what are you doing? And I had to stand back and think critically, and I went, right, where do I find this kind of information? And at the time, the internet wasn't a big thing. Like, it was about books, it was about going to see professionals. So I joined a new gym. I happened to have an induction with a really good personal trainer, which I'm still friends with today. And he recommended I read a book. I bought this book. I read it in the space of a week. He recommended like doing a bit of weight training and that kind of stuff. And a combination of these things saw me lose 4 stone in 4 months. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. And then the remaining 1.5 stone took a little bit longer. And that's what got me into health and fitness. This kind of massive period of struggling and friction, going, why isn't it working? Having an intervention and then changing my strategy and having massive success. I was like, this is really cool. And naturally I lost interest with the acting because I'd kind of done it for a long time, was probably questioning whether it was right for me. And I just went down the trainer path and trained to become a personal trainer. Over time, specialised in nutrition because that kind of just got me. I kind of enjoyed it, and it probably changed the most in my life. Like, I felt the most benefit from nutritional changes. And yeah, ever since then, I've been working in the field of health and fitness, teaching, speaking, doing this online social media thing, and kind of generally trying to get myself about.
And were there business kind of archetypes that you wanted to model as well? Were there people that you looked to as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, my mum always said I had sort of entrepreneurial tendencies, as they call it. I don't know. I remember though, when I was at school, you used to be able to take a tuck box, which was full of sweets and crisps and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And all the kids would eat all their stuff within like the first 3 or 4 weeks, and I'd hoard mine and save it. And then at weeks 5, 6, 7, 8 of the term, I'd then sell all my tuck to them at a profit. So who knows, there's maybe a little bit of a buzz in there for seeing an opportunity. But I went to university and I was kind of really struggling with being a personal trainer. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my calling. And I got an email from our university kind of course, someone, and they said there was an enterprise centre opening in our university. And I was like, oh, what's that? And I went and had an open day and spoke to some people, and I met this guy who had started a smoothie company, and he was making fresh fruit smoothies in schools, and he was using the smoothies to teach kids. And I was like, that's really freaking cool. I was like, so you started a business and you're going into schools, and he also had a bar in the union, and all the students used to drink his smoothies. They'd go in £2, banana and strawberry smoothie, and he was trying to promote that as a healthier snack and stuff. And I kind of saw this online world slowly growing. At that point in time, like, Facebook was starting to become a thing. Yeah. And I was struggling with the personal training, and then this guy over here was quite inspiring. And then over time, I was like, I think I might want to do something like this. Like, I want to start a business. I want to maybe get online. So I started reading different books, started to talk to different people. I remember at the time, Dragon's Den was just starting as well.
Yeah.
So I was reading all of their books, and it was just this amalgamation of interest going, I think I can do something here. And 2008 was when I've launched my first online coaching business, which is a colossal failure. Yeah, but you learn, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so many iterations of business before one.
Yeah.
Is at a point where you can run with.
Yeah. So failed a lot, and luckily didn't fail for too long. It lasted a year, where I kind of sat down and got critical and looked at the people that I actually wanted to serve as a nutritionist, and rebuilt that business in 2009. And that business still exists today. Okay,
and that was so 2008, 2009. That's kind of like the zeitgeist where entrepreneurship became cool with the Apprentice and Dragon's Den, and like you say, like the books that were coming out and things like that. Before that, it wasn't really a part of the narrative.
Not really.
It started to change at that point.
Yeah, businesses were kind of like big and old school and clunky, and this entrepreneurial vibe started to come through. The online space was still kind of like an opportunist space. So I didn't really ever see kind of like the internet as a way to make money. I saw internet as always a way to reach people.
Yeah.
So I never really looked at like the kind of intelligent bits that make a business. I just kind of looked at Facebook and I thought, well, hang on, Facebook's a way to talk to people. If I can get people off Facebook to my website and read my blog, then I can prove to them I know some stuff, and then they'll come and be a client of mine. And then over time, I obviously got serious about that being a business and stuff. But like, if we look at 2009 to now, in the space of 10 years, like, it's the norm to work from home. It's the norm to have 3 jobs. It's the norm to, sell, cupcakes on eBay. Like, and that's cool because it's opened up opportunity for kind of everyone.
Yeah. And it's only going to become more widespread, isn't it? And more and more people are going to go that way, and you can monetize 1, 2, or 3 of your major skill sets, or combine them and niche out based on exactly who you are. And I just think the whole world is going to go that way.
It's going to be weird. It's going to be exciting. I think it'll flatline again, where people, because there'll be loads of people where you're just not wired to do that.
Yeah.
Like, entrepreneurialism takes a certain amount of risk and want to keep having to innovate. Like we were talking off air a minute ago, like the rate of innovation now online is just like it's ferocious.
Yeah.
And you've got to have a certain appetite to keep up with that, and not everyone's built to have that. And also, once you get older, kind of things change. Like, you have kids, and life kind of gets a bit sort of serious, and actually, do you want the stress of like working from home and all that kind of stuff? There's probably loads of people that would like to go, I want to turn up to work at 9 and I want to leave at 5, and I don't want to have to think about it. So I think there'll be another like shift as well, where it will all kind of like settle down again, because it isn't right for everyone.
And what was the change between 2008 2009 that you implemented to turn that business around?
So this is probably the thing that happens in many industries, but I kind of did what was expected of my business. So if I looked at the diet industry, I was like, right, who needs help with dieting? Okay, females quite often struggle with dieting. Okay, people that have had kids and got busy jobs. And I kind of sort of ended up niching myself in this kind of like 30 to 45-year-old female with kids, because that seemed to be where the massive diet culture was, which it was, like Weight Watchers, Slimming World, all these shake companies and stuff. And I was like, well, let me try and help these people. So I kind of did what was expected. And then when I got further down the line, I was actually coaching these people. I was like, I don't enjoy coaching these people. And it's not that I didn't care. It's just I couldn't resonate with these people. I was a 23-year-old young guy interested in sport and building muscle, and there's me trying to help a 45-year-old woman who has got 2 kids, who's stressed, who's tired, like doesn't know how to juggle it all, and I'm sitting there going, make time. Like, here's a new recipe. Like, I had no compassion for that person, so I was like, hang on, who do I actually want to coach? People like me. Like, people that are interested in sport, performance, building muscle, going on adventures. So I rebuilt the business to attract my perfect client, and it worked brilliantly because those people I could resonate with and I could work with them.
So the way you spoke and the way you acted and you could the life that you embodied was actually content.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm going to struggle to put together content for me if I can't really resonate with the problems that a 40-year-old female with 2 kids has.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous. It's naive, and it was naive of me.
Yeah. So how do you manage having different hats to wear, so to speak. So you have like a media hat with the podcast, you have the entrepreneurial hat with the supplement business, you have the coaching hat. Do you work on cultivating each one of those, or do you think it's your niche is exactly who you are and you're able to express all those things at the same time?
So I'd say that's two different questions. Firstly, in terms of balancing the different hats, I mean, I've been in kind of like the business entrepreneurial game, so to speak, for like going on just over 10 years now. So I've gone through this phase of like start-up, okay, refining my trade, systemizing my trade. So all the coaching stuff. So for example, I still coach an awful lot of people, but it's a really systemized process in my business. So I only really spend about 4 hours a week coaching, but I can coach hundreds of people, and that's because of how I've learned to systemize my business. I've then got staff that I've kind of grown over the time to kind of bolt in and help me with those kind of aspects, which means my business is actually way better than it was than just me working in it, because more eyes on a problem is a good thing. And then you kind of go through these kind of like systemization processes of your business. So I kind of, because I've been through the phases, I've then learned how to kind of wear these hats. So back in the day, I'd wear the coaching hat for 25 hours a week, and now I've got to the place where only you can wear it for 4 hours a week. And I suppose once you get to a point where I'm at with my business, you've just got to learn to be able to put one hat on and one hat off very quickly. And I think the way that I navigate this now is I don't let anything get in between the taking off and the taking on of the hat. And what I mean by that is, I suppose mainly our mobile phone and social media is the biggest point of disruption in most people's day. So, you know, someone's phone sits in their pocket, it's buzzing, there's emails, there's social, there's always stuff that wants our attention. So I might say to myself, right, I'm getting up at 5 this morning, and from 5 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to work on this new book that I'm writing, for example. So I'd set 4 hours aside, I'd work on the new book, and then like people might turn on their phone and all the rest of it. Well, if my next important job at 9 o'clock in the morning is then to go and do a management meeting, and then maybe to do a 2-hour coaching call or something, then I don't let anything get in the way of changing of those hats, because it changes my focus, it interferes with my focus, it then becomes muddled. So it's like anything, I literally chunk out my time. So 2 hours might be writing, an hour might be social media, an hour meeting, and I stick to that, because otherwise it all becomes really confusing and really stressful. And I think that's the problem with kind of like entrepreneurialism, the modern world in general, social media, the startup space, is that it's just so much noise, because we're trying to build stuff, work on stuff, coach people, help people, you know, think about innovation, but then we've got this big buzz of social media in the middle, and we're just trying to navigate it, we're trying to reply to customers and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's where you've got to really get back to basics when it comes to life management, of just like being able to defend your time and saying this is for this and this is for that, and I'll reply when I'm ready over here and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it just takes a bit of time, but you've got to be really strong in your resolve with building those different systems and environments in your business and in your life as well.
When do you set what your day's going to be or what your week's going to be? Do you know that going into each day, or do you know that going into each week? So
I generally have a 3-month plan, break my life into a quarter, which is guided by like my year's plan, so what am I trying to achieve this year. So then we have quarterly targets, and then we have monthly targets. And then at the beginning of the week, me and my team will sit down and go, right, what are we trying to achieve this week? What's our focuses? And then we debate it in case it needs to change. And then that then kind of roughly plans out my week. What I used to do is I used to overcommit all my time. So I used to put loads of my weekly to-dos on like a Monday. So I used to have this massive list. And then Monday, realistically, I did 2 of those things, and there's another 8. And so I finished Monday and I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't finish my week. And then this to-do list is always moving. And the problem I had with that is I never felt good about my work, because I was like always underperforming against my own expectations.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing is I ended up having a list that was hidden. So I had like 2 things on the to-do list, and if I saw myself within an hour left that day, I could then make the decision to go, actually, I'm not going to work anymore today. I'm just going to chill, have fun. Or I'm going to go, no, I'm feeling good, I'm energized. I'm going to go to that 3rd thing, and then I uncover it. It's like a bonus thing for my day. Because otherwise it's very easy to get to the end of the day and feel quite unfulfilled when you're self-employed. So I lowered my expectations of my time. And also, when I was younger, I had this kind of relentless determination. Like, you know, nothing would stop me from doing this, and this. And I'd work till 2 o'clock in the morning to do it. I don't need to do that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. So I am a bit more laid back about what I'm doing. Like, you know, and there's people helping me and stuff, which is awesome. So yeah, I kind of sort of break my week down. And also I've learned over time that expectation thing is very important to do, because you never know who's going to steal your time. The reality is I'm a business owner with many different staff, many different things that can go wrong. And if I don't open up my timetable to kind of go, there's 2 hours in my day for all the screw ups that are going to happen, all the conversations that I'm going to have that I didn't plan for. Because I never want to be that business owner that, you know, it's just always too busy to enjoy their life or like whatever. Like, people ring me up and they're like, oh, thanks for taking my time. I know you're really busy. And I'm like, I'm not actually that busy. Like, I'm absolutely fine. And it's because now I know to plan in this kind of like flexible window, because otherwise you kind of always feel unfulfilled with what you're doing, and I don't want that. I've had that a lot, and it wasn't a very enjoyable place to be, because I knew that I actually enjoyed my business. I was just setting up the systems and the planning wrong, and it wasn't allowing me to enjoy it.
So you kind of cultivated order in your work life, and that kind of discipline has given you the freedom to be able to not work as hard as you know you're capable of. So it's not a question of work ethic. You know you can do that, and you have done that in previous iterations. But because you've systemized and been disciplined with what you do and don't do on a daily basis, you're now freer and don't have to work frantically, because you've built the order out of what could have been chaos.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm, to finish on that, more compassionate with my expectations on myself. Because when I was younger, like I could just pile it on, and I was this super resilient machine. And over time, I was like, actually, I'm not super resilient. Like, I can't have that expectation on myself. And also, as I've got older, I've accumulated more things that I have to be responsible for. When I was 23, what realistically did I have to be responsible for? Myself, the food that went in my mouth, my rent, which was low. Now I've got a wife, house, dog, staff, 3 businesses. Like, that all complicates it. So there's got to be a lot more there's got to be less expectation that you can just be a superhero every day, because you can't. It's the reality. Yeah.
And you start to see things. So when you're in your kind of early and mid 20s, you wear the work ethic, you wear the lack of sleep, you wear the overworking at that level of development and at that age. You just want to, like, for me, like, you just want to prove to yourself that you can do that, and you've got the work ethic, and you're going to be successful through hard work and determination. But you can't do that to the nth degree, because sooner or later something fails, and it's your social life in terms of like having a partner and things like that, or it's your body, your health, especially with like the lack of sleep and things like that. So you have to enforce these systems. It's out of necessity as much as a shifting in development.
Yeah. Do you know what? I never actually feel like I've ever missed out on anything in my life, and really? I think it's just because I've made every hour in my day count. I don't like sort of getting to the end of the day and going, oh, there's 3 hours I completely wasted. Even if that 3 hours is like for chilling, I want to chill in a meaningful way. Like, I maybe want to go down a pub with my mates. Like, I want to do something with it, that rather than just having 3 hours where I did nothing. So, like, as an example, when I was at uni, when all my friends were sitting in front of the TV watching Netflix and eating pizza, I might be out working. Like, it was in my 3rd year, I worked 5 jobs at uni. Did 5 jobs. One of them was starting a business. I also did a dissertation, which I did a write-in. I also worked abroad on fitness retreats during the summer in Africa and in Portugal. I still went out probably 2 nights a week in my final year of uni. So I was still going out and having fun and living the uni life. But I just looked at my day and I was like, I'm going to fill every hour of that day with useful stuff. So when you talk to me about, you know, like, have you sacrificed anything to get to where you are today? And I'm like, yeah, in theory, but I don't feel that way. Like, I've worked hard when I've chosen to, and I've been very focused with my work, but I've travelled a lot. Like, I've done a lot of cool shit in my life. Like I've been to like 35 countries. Like, most people have, you know, probably been to about 12 or 15. Like, and it's just because I've gone, I'm going to live my best life, and that's kind of how I see it.
And you've always had that mindset?
I think so. I think when I was younger, my mum used to just say, like, do whatever you want in life, I'll support you. And like, I've just never feel like I've been bound by anything in my life. Like, I was kind of like, when I was 18, I was basically out on my own. Like, my mum and my stepdad at the time lived in the UAE, so they weren't in the UK. So basically, I lived in their house with 4 other people, some of whom I knew, some of whom I didn't. And I was kind of like, well, it's me. I've got a house. I've got to put 300 quid in the piggy bank for rent a month. Like, it's just me. And I think at that point in time, I just thought I can control every hour of my day. And I still think like that. I've got to think of more things. I've got to think of my wife and a few other things. But I still look at my day going, I can control every hour of my day. So I'm going to do that. And I think a lot of other people have maybe not had that initial start that I have, where I kind of had that freedom and I chose to take control of that freedom. You know, a lot of people have been very used to like saying yes to everyone, and you know, we're very good at doing lots of things for other people. And I learned very young that if I want to get the most out of my life, I'm going to make decisions on my own terms, and I still do that. Doesn't mean I'm not compassionate to other people, but my first thought is, am I going to enjoy this? Do I want to do it? And if I don't, I'll say no. And I'll be really honest. Like, if a friend goes, Ben, do you want to come out for a beer? And I'm like, no, mate, like I just don't fancy it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool, it's fine.
Just don't.
Whereas most
right
other,
now.
whereas most other people will just be like, yes, because the expectation is that you will do something for other people, and I will put myself first a lot of the time. But for me, that's the way that I always bring my best self to my day, is putting myself first.
It's the kind of metaphor like on an airplane, isn't it? Is that you put your own gas mask on first, or your oxygen mask on first, so that you're fully capable of helping somebody else. And if you go too long without your own supply of oxygen, you're not really any good to yourself or others at a certain point.
Yeah. I see so many people in life as a coach with resentment, anger, frustration, and a lot of that is because people are doing shit they don't want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we need to change that. Like, you need to start making decisions for yourself. I'm not saying don't care about the people at work, your wife, your kids, all that kind of stuff. But in between all that, are you making all those decisions for yourself? Because otherwise you do get to 30, 40, 50 with regrets. And I don't want to have that life. Like, I want to be able to maximise everything. So I do.
Yeah. It's kind of selfishness as a virtue, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's important, because if actually you went under the hood to who we are as primates, we are very selfish creatures. We do things based on our own terms. Like, everything that we do in life is kind of an exchange, but we always want to get something out of it. So I turn up to work, for example, to help my company, but I turn up to work ultimately to earn my wage, to live my life, to do the things that I want to do. So as long as we can become comfortable with the fact that we are very selfish beings, and that's okay, as long as no one else is getting negatively affected by that, then I think that's actually quite an empowering thing. And I think a lot of people see being selfish as a very negative thing. Oh, you shouldn't be selfish. And it's like, well, actually I should, because it's kind of my life. And if I'm negatively affecting you, then I probably haven't gone about it in the right way. And then you can kind of look at that. I think being selfish is a good thing. Yeah,
I do too. And I think, because it's agreeableness is kind of socially reinforced and selfishness is kind of socially punished. But reframing that to like we say, like, well, I have to be selfish to be the best version of myself, which is the version you want to deal with, interact with, be a partner with, be a friend with. This is how it's going to have to be, and in the nicest possible way, I'm going to do it. You know,
100%, very well worded. I like it.
So then, in terms of, when did you realise that you had to systematise your businesses? Because as personal trainers and coaches, it's us, and we're the coach, and we have these relationships with clients and things like that. But to scale, you have to you have to build systems, and in order to be able to scale and things not break. When did you know that? Did you learn that somewhere, or did you figure that out?
I've read a lot of business books, as have you, and they talk about it all the time, like system. And I do think there's a certain amount of truth in that. If you can build a business, or even like your lifestyle, like, because my personal life is a system. Like, the way that I move and interact with my wife, all that stuff is a system. It kind of talked about all that stuff because systems are really uncool. Like, systems involve like Word and Excel and bits of software and stuff, and it's not very fun. So I kind of ignored it and I just kind of went gung-ho. But then there was a point in my business where everything was breaking down and I was just constantly chasing one thing to another. And then I realised that I'm repeating myself here and I'm repeating myself there and there and there. And I'm like, hang on, if I bring all this together, that is a system. And yeah, it got kind of really bad at a certain point in time where kind of I nearly went bankrupt. And that was the bit that we really went into our business and kind of went, right, there's so much going on. People don't know what they're doing, where they're going. And we almost spent like a year rebuilding the back end of our business and teaching everyone like how it works culturally and structurally. So yeah, it usually has to break before you're going to actually fix it and implement it. And that's like most things in life. How many people do we know that, you need a health scare before you kind of take action, or you need some level of anxiety before you start to challenge your mindset and how you think. Like quite often friction is needed before we take action.
Yeah, 100%. So this relationship didn't work out. So what's it going to take to have a good relationship? This business failed. So what's it going to take to build a good business? That kind of thing. And it's like you say, you need that friction. You need those failures and challenges. How did you get through? Like if you were kind of nearly going bankrupt, that must have been quite stressful.
Mm-hmm.
How did you manage that stress in terms of your relationship, in terms of with your employees and your own physical health?
Management of it came from being very honest and being very vulnerable with my wife. So I didn't generally share an awful lot with my wife because she was interested, but like I kind of spend all day at work talking about it and I'm not that interested about going home and talking all about it again. So I didn't actually share that much, but there was a point that I needed that emotional support. And also she is very skilled in understanding people. She's quite good with numbers. And actually she became quite an asset in helping me through that process. I also had to level with my team and say, look, we're not in a good place. Like we're fighting every day and I'm not going to be here and put on this magical mask where underneath, duck on water, my legs are just spinning.
Yeah.
So it started with radical honesty. The hardest bit that I struggled with was getting out of bed in the morning. That was difficult because if I didn't get out of bed, then I had less time in the day. But I was lying in bed thinking, I don't want to face today because all the things I've got to do are things that I don't want to do. So when I talked about like rebuilding systems and all this kind of boring stuff, it's not my skill set. I'm not good at it. But I had to do it because we didn't have the money to like pull people in to fix things and stuff. So I was doing it all myself. But I think what kept me going is almost the habit and the routine. Like I've been used to, for a long time, getting up early and just getting on with it. Like having a to-do list, this is what I want to achieve today, 5 o'clock in the morning, getting on with it. And I think that pattern kept me going. So I'm glad that I've kind of got those behaviours and I still do that today. Like I like to get up and seize my day. And if I'm only working 3 hours, that's cool. At least I've got up early, I've got in front of the day and I've done some cool stuff, whether I'm working 3 hours or 12 hours. So yeah, difficult time, not going to lie.
Yeah. And it was out of the systems that you because it's like as an entrepreneur, sometimes we kind of, I think one of the traits we have is kind of like high in trait creativity. So then building all those systems can be a really uninspiring process. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, I had that idea 2 years ago, but the business isn't efficient. But I kind of left the scene of the idea 2 years ago. But to scale that business, you have to go through that period of the systemizing everything and making sure everything's a process and a protocol. So we just had to knock on the door from the postman. But so we were just about to talk about where we kind of leave the scene of a creative idea as an entrepreneur, and then we realise down the line that the business is no longer, or is not going to be scalable because we haven't put the systems in place.
Yeah.
When did you emerge? How long did it take you to emerge from that, the other side of it, where you could be creative again and think about books and new projects and new things like that?
It took a long time because, in all honesty, it knocked my confidence a lot. It's not something I've talked about a lot because I suppose I'd probably try and shy away from it kind of crushing me, because I've always seen myself as quite a strong-minded person, quite strong-willed. So it probably took kind of operationally sort of 12 months to come out of it, but it probably took me another 12 months to realise my kind of inner power again. And I didn't take enough action to try and realise how I should be getting that power back. Like, what steps do I need to go through to rebuild that? And I thought it would be a case of like, the problem's gone, I'll just turn that mindset back on again. and it didn't, and I kind of got quite frustrated with myself. So it probably took about a good 9 months, and it's only really fairly recently kind of happened, probably about 3 months ago, where I kind of went through a load of mentoring processes where I reached out to some old people that could have helped me in the past, that could help me, and I went and put myself in a couple of environments where I could realise that I am that person, and I can recreate that energy, and I can bring that kind of strength of character back. It took me quite a while because I realised that there was a lot more damage in the business. So while I had people operationally in my business, culturally they weren't working in the right way because the culture had been crushed without me knowing it, because of someone that I brought in to kind of manage that part of my business. So all of that took a lot longer than I wanted to. But now I kind of probably now appreciate a lot more where people go through difficult times in their life of like maybe having a job that they didn't enjoy and their manager like crushing their confidence, or maybe going through a period where they experienced some hate on social media and someone was being overly aggressive or whatever to them, and it kind of crushed their confidence and their ability a bit. And I kind of get that again now, because I haven't experienced it for a while. I was bullied all throughout school, and it was probably a good thing that when I was 18, I like never saw any of my schoolmates again. So I was able to leave that identity behind. Yeah. And then I went on my weight loss journey, so I was able to create a new identity. I was no longer that overweight, jolly acting kid who was a thespian, and he was now this athletic, strong fitness guy. Like I was a totally different human. So I kind of get now how life experiences can beat us down, because I've kind of experienced that not too recently. But you need to go through those steps again. It doesn't come back as easily as you want it to. And if you don't go through those steps again, you're not going to rise through it and then above it, because I want to surpass it. Because I was on a trajectory, and then I got taken off that trajectory, and I want to get back on it, but put a bit more of a rocket under it. And I've kind of sussed that out in the last couple of months, and I'm really glad, because everything else in my life is working better now. Like I've got more energy to train, and I haven't changed anything. It's just inside, in my ego, in my soul, there's more to give. And I've already trained like 5 days in a row. I'd never trained that much before, because by day 3 I'd just be like, kind of need a rest. But there's something in me, there's this energy, and I think it's because I've got my power back. I think that's a good thing. But now I can see how it can happen to people. But people need to take action to rediscover that.
It's almost esoteric, isn't it? It's that when you're aligned, when you feel like you're your best self and you're doing your best work and everything else, it's almost like you get lucky again. Like the universe almost responds with kind of like I wouldn't call it luck, but the opportunities start coming back, the ideas start coming back, the relationships start working, and everything works when you're aligned. And when you're living incongruently, or like we say with people who are uninspired by their work or things like that, or just generally unhappy with the way things are panning out at the moment, everything else suffers. Life is kind of hologrammatic. Is that what's happening in one area does reflect in other areas. You can't really be perfect in one area or integral or unintegral in one and it not play out in another. If you look at life hologrammatically, what's going well in one area and internally who you are as your identity, if that is aligned, it starts to play out in other fields. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And what am I going to say? It's kind of like when I was going through that difficult period, I knew that I had to be healthy and happy and strong because my work depended on it. So if I was going to turn up to a speaking gig and I'd put on, a stone and a half and I looked tired and all the rest of it, I didn't want to be the guy that was like, oh, it's okay because like I'm going bankrupt and things are a bit difficult at the moment. This is why I've turned up and I'm a little bit shabby. So what I did is I kind of protected certain areas of my life. So usually, for example, I would get up, do some work, go for a dog walk, come back, have a few meetings, do a bit of work, and then I'd train in the gym. When I was going through a difficult time, I was always pushing my training aside because I was like so mentally drained by the time it came to 3 o'clock. I just didn't want to work out. And if I did work out, it was just a crap workout. So I was like, well, how do I fix that part of the problem, part of my life? Because training's really important. I want to look good and feel good. So I then moved my training to 6 o'clock in the morning. I hate training at 6 o'clock in the morning. I've got no interest in it. But I forced myself to do it because then I knew that I wouldn't be impacted mentally by the time I got to my training session. So I committed to 3 days a week. That's it. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Got up, went to the gym. Quite often I do a bit of cardio to kind of like wake myself out and just increase my endorphins, and then kind of do some weights and stuff. And I did that to kind of almost protect the other areas of my life that needed to go well, because so much was going badly. And I think there's a good lesson in that for people. Like, sometimes things aren't going great, but you've got to control what you can to get the best out of it. I didn't want that to be the reason why my relationship maybe suffered a bit, and my training suffered, and my eating suffered. And that's what we see. Like, a couple of things go wrong in people's life and everything just goes out in the window. I'm the opposite. I'm like, okay, like, things aren't great, but what can I control? And I'm going to control it, because at least I'll be 70% my best self rather than 30%. And I think that's an important reflection and self-awareness to have in that process.
And how do you approach the kind of the vulnerability and the congruence of when things? So if you're known as a successful character in the health and fitness industry, known as a like a kind of transcending health and fitness into personal development and business and things like that, and if things aren't working out, but those are some of the things that you're known for, how do you bridge that transparency and congruence and vulnerability? Is that something that was difficult at first, to be able to say publicly things aren't working out with the financials at the moment, or if you had to struggle with your health for a moment? How do we bridge that, being public characters?
Yeah, I should have been vulnerable a lot sooner. So at the beginning of 2007, all the crap started, and it wasn't until I got to December 2017 that I did a podcast on like everything that was happening. And I did the podcast, and it is my most successful podcast episode to date. Like, I literally was on Instagram for 3 days replying to DMs. People were like, I can't believe, like, you've just shared that. I had no idea. Like, you know, I've been through a similar thing. Like, you know, people sharing and appreciating the vulnerability that I had. The problem is that I had sort of kept it all so secret for so long that I felt frustrated. I felt angry. I felt kind of that I was wearing this mask, and it was doing the podcast that allowed me to go, like, I was so relieved, and I wish I'd done it earlier. But the problem is I was like in the thick of it, and also I had no time for people's sympathy. Like, it sounds horrible, but I can't afford to waste my time for an hour on social media with everyone going, oh, you're right, Ben, is everything okay? Like, that is not going to free my time up to create more action or time to be able to go and do the things that I need to do to get me out of that position. Yeah. And we see that so often on people online. They're like, oh, this has happened. And then they spend like all evening on social media chatting about their problems to people. I'm like, if you hadn't have done that, you could have spent that whole 3 hours going and fixing the problem. And that's kind of how I chose to deal with it. Was it the right thing to do? Like, I don't know. But I didn't want to waste any more time, because that's how social media works. Like, if I post on social media like I'm having a bad day, I'm going to get 100 DMs. And my commitment to my following is that I'll reply to all of those DMs, because that's how I position myself in the industry. I'm not that guy that's like, ignore him, that's not interesting. I reply to everyone. So I kind of, again, needed to protect that. But being vulnerable was the best thing I did, because just people had a new level of respect for me. They're like, fuck it, mate, you hid that well. But, you know, and then people could resonate with my story. They're like, oh, mate, I've been there. And, like, you know, I've learned from your kind of strength. Like, if you can get through it, then I can get through it. And so I think, you know, and I've taken that into my future podcasts. I've been, you know, as vulnerable as humanly possible. You know, if you ask me a question, I'll say it exactly how it is. That's just how I feel the world needs to be as well. You know, social media is a very pretty place, and life isn't always pretty.
And then how do you do that at home as well, in terms of like, so for example, we meet our partners, and some attractive traits are confidence and ambition and work ethic and dedication and those kind of things. But then when things aren't working out, how do you bridge those conversations and say, like, listen, I know you know me as this person who everything's going well and I'm working really hard and it's all working out, but right now it's not, and I need your support and I want to talk to you about it. At what point in the relationship do you feel like you can bridge that, and how do you go about those kind of conversations?
Yeah, not easy conversations to have. I levelled with my partner very quickly because it became very apparent, because I'm quite a happy-go-lucky, quite sort of focused individual, and straight away I was like in the ground, the energy wasn't there. So I levelled with her, and it was one of the best things that's ever happened for our relationship, because we went another level deeper. Like, for me to open up about every problem that was happening in my life, she was like we're now connected on a new level. So it was the best thing that ever happened for my marriage. We're now married. We weren't married at the time. And we now feel a lot more open and honest with each other. So I think that's important, to be as vulnerable as possible, because men probably especially are very good at putting up a very big confidence macho wall, and we're not always confident and macho. And your wife is probably very happy with you being macho and confident 60, 70, 80% of the time. But your wife or your partner needs to see that you can be vulnerable, you're willing to be vulnerable, you're willing to open yourself up, because that is really what a human being is. We are a mix of emotions every day. It's not healthy to be that archetyped 100% of the day, and your partner will see that it's fake some of the time. And she could see me putting it on sometimes. I need to be strong in this moment. And she could see that I wasn't, so I stopped pretending, and it was a good thing. So it just changed our relationship for a while, and we just grew as a couple.
And sometimes it's that the feminine energy can be the forging force as well, isn't it? Like we talked about Jordan Peterson's work, and so the other day I went to see The Lion King, and there's that scene where it's like, well, you have to come back and be king. Like you've had your time here, but you have to come back and be king. And sometimes some of those conversations can be, you're very vulnerable in those conversations, but it's with the right partner and the right chemistry and the right communication, the forging factor of saying, no, you can do it, and I'm here with you to do it as well. It's just me, you, and a cardboard box if it needs to be. That's a very inspired relationship, and it becomes a lot stronger by being able to have those conversations, rather than just coming home and saying everything's fine, but struggling on your own.
One cool thing that it taught both of us is to have a lot more direct communication. So a lot of people are scared of asking their partner or someone close the thing that they actually want to ask them.
Yeah.
So they'll try and go about it 10 different ways to get the answer they want, and it never really works. So we have the ability right now, so I could stand in front of my wife and sort of say, are you happy right now? Are you happy with the social events we went to the other night? Like, something might have happened and maybe there was a slightly heated conversation, and I might just be able to say to her, like, are you happy with how I handled that conversation? So we're now really able to do that with each other, and like nothing lingers in our relationship anymore. There's nothing under the table getting stuffy and winding us up and that we're getting frustrated about, because we're able to say, I'm really not happy with what happened today. Like, can we have a quick chat about it? And we'll go for a dog walk and we'll talk about it. So it taught us to be really open, fast, direct and honest. And I think there's something really powerful about asking just a direct, simple conversation. And I think because of the advent of social media, we're almost a bit scared to do it. Like, if you said on social media, like, why did you say that? People would think, oh my God, I've offended that person. Perhaps that person is just merely asking, why did you say that? I want to hear your explanation. So it's kind of like, I can't remember, I'm probably going to butcher this and I don't mean to, when someone's got like Asperger's, or they've got a learning difficulty, or probably just use the example of children, like they ask things really directly, and like if you're not used to being around kids for a while and you spend a bit of time around kids, they kind of ask things like, why did you do that? And you're like, people don't speak to each other like that anymore, and I think that's a really, really cool thing. Like being able to ask those really simple childlike questions.
Yeah. Because it kind of gets rid of a lot of resentment and passive aggression, doesn't it? Because you're able to just talk directly. Like, what do you actually mean? What do you actually want to know? And let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Because then we don't have to make these little jibes and little daggers here and there. And when that goes on for too long, you become enemies. Whereas really you're supposed to be partners and working towards a shared vision.
And that's why I love watching, before we went on air, I asked if you'd watched the TV programme Suits on Netflix, one of my favourite TV programmes. And one of the reasons is they have amazing, direct, really high level conversations. So these are like powerful lawyers fighting in New York, time is of the essence, and they'll just like walk into an office and they'll be like, why did you do that in that way? And then there'll be a conversation, then there'll be a bit of an argument, then they'll rationalise, then they'll come to an outcome, and then they'll kind of like fist pump. And I love watching the way that people at that level can navigate that kind of conversation, because it leads to like massive clarity and massive outcome. Whereas not many people have that in their lives. They don't have massive output and massive clarity. So how do we create that? Well, it's through direct, more compassionate, but kind of productive conversations. So I think I think the world could do with a lot of communication skills. I don't think we're really taught it. I think it's a real fundamental skill. The world goes round based on communication. Especially in Britain, I think we almost have the art of stepping around everything and not having that direct communication, just to not rustle feathers. Yeah. But like you've seen, if you're having a kind of a combative conversation with someone and you just say to them something like, "Do you want me to feel bad about that because that felt like the intention, or was that intended to be manipulative because that kind of felt like you wanted me to feel this way about it?" So I'm like, "Oh no," and then they'll never do it again. It's almost like a form of bullying. And as soon as you identify who's the bully, and you say, "No, this is not someone to be bullied. This is not somebody to be oppressed," or those kind of thoughts, they just don't do it again because you're off the list of people that they can do that with, and then it becomes direct communication. And I think more people need to do that. So when they see incoming kind of dangerous conversation or bad intentions, just address it straight away. Why did you do that? Was that supposed to make me feel this way? And people will just become apologetic because nobody wants to be called on a negative intention. So it's a very powerful strategy, just direct communication. It seems like it should be obvious, but it's not, especially in Britain, I think. Yeah, definitely. And when we look at social media, it's quite often, so when you're getting some kind of like hate or aggression or emotion, it's quite usually that person's problem, it's not yours. Yeah. And like you're saying, if people can kind of be direct and combat that, the chances are that person will back off very quickly because they're like, "Oh, I didn't mean to come across like that, but then actually this is a reflection of my problem, not there." Yeah. And you'd be amazed at how much friction online is not the original postee's problem, but the problem of the person. Yeah. Where did your kind of, because speaking to you, it's very obvious that you've thought about things. You've thought about who you used to be, who you grew up as, who you want to be. And I think because, we're filming in your home, and I think you've thought about and deliberately cultivated your environment to facilitate your success and your happiness. Were there kind of major personal development interventions in your life at certain points? Because I think you went to a Tony Robbins event earlier on in your life, and continually studying. I know that you're Jordan Peterson, or you've gone through some of Jordan Peterson's work about individual responsibility and things like that. When did your personal development journey start? And did you feel like there were, because we all have these psychic kind of gaps or weaknesses in our identity, and did you look at plugging those holes and making some of the weaknesses strengths and things like that? I know it's a huge question, but when did it start? No, well, as you were talking about it, I was kind of thinking back of where I think that has come from, because I don't think I'd really thought about it before in that way. Yeah. And I think it started when I went travelling. So I went travelling for 3 months around Asia by myself when I was 19, so it's a long time ago now. It's like 14 years or something. And I spent a lot of time by myself because I travelled by myself. So I met a lot of people, but I remember being on this island off the coast of Thailand. I'd made a bit of a screw up. I shouldn't really have been there, and I was pretty much on my own for 5 days. And when you spend that amount of time on your own, you learn how to be on your own, but then you learn the beauty of what comes when you're on your own. And I don't think many people are very comfortable spending long periods of time by themselves. So it's in these moments that we're able to just literally sit and think. And it sounds silly these days, but how much time do we spend to sit down and just actually think? I will regularly go on a long car journey and not put the radio on, a podcast on, anything. But most people's initial reaction is, what am I going to listen to? What music am I going to play? And I'll just drive and I'll be like, if I want to put on a podcast, I'll put one on. But for the moment, I'm just going to enjoy some silence. And I think I learned early on that it's where you get your real personal development. It's in time of quiet, because you can just spend time thinking about things. So you and me might have a conversation, and I'm going to drive to cricket this afternoon, and I'll probably drive halfway there in silence, thinking, how did that interview go today? Do I want to improve anything for the future? The way that I maybe told a story, or maybe the way that we connected in the interview, just anything. Like, do I want to change anything? And it's only through those periods of reflection that you're able to change the course of your life. And I think it probably came from that. And now I still, even more today probably, love time by myself and in silence, because I'm able to navigate what's happening in my head. You know, people often look at successful people and think, he's got all the stuff that's going on in his head sorted. Like, it's all okay. He's motivated, he's driven, you know, all that stuff. I still have all the same mental battles everyone else does. Yes, I know how to deal with it quicker because I've practiced it, but I spend time doing it, working on it, whereas most people aren't spending time working on what's in here. So I'll regularly take half an hour to go and do a bit of gardening. And again, I'll do it on my own. I'm doing something, I'm outdoors, but I'm by myself. I'm thinking, I'm just chilling. And I think there's a lot of beauty in silence.
I can resonate with that. I think I've had my biggest breakthroughs in terms of where I want to take the business or things I need to do for my own personal growth when I've taken deliberate time away, like almost like a mini retirement or something like that. Like, go to Australia for a month, or go here for a month, or even, like you say, go take the dog out, or go for a walk for half a day or something like that, and just sit and think. And sometimes you see a problem you didn't even know you had, or you see a solution that you couldn't have thought of if you were still in the everyday. And I think you need that recharge time, you need that recovery time, and sometimes you need that time just to wait for inspiration to set in.
Definitely, I love that. That's also why I travel a lot. Travel a lot on my work, travel a lot personally, because it's just stimuluses. A plane ride, a weird food, a conversation with a guy that wasn't speaking English and you had to try and like sign language and stuff, and then you got stuck somewhere so you had to think on your feet. Like, all those little different iterations of life build character. And I think I'm fortunate that I had the foresight and the desire to do that from an early age. Like, when, you know, not many people went backpacking at the age of 19 completely on their own with, you know, $1,000 in their pocket. You know, I did that. Not many people had, you know, their life to build on their own. Like, I was 18, I had pretty much nothing. I had a roof over my head, that was it. I kind of went for it. So I think I've been able to take on board all these little stimuluses and kind of mini trainings and keep building it into a strong sense of character.
So it's like a perpetual kind of hero's journey. And you're taking times out to go back into that journey and come back and show the world how you've grown. Sort of.
Definitely, yeah. And I still do it today. And I'm probably more now trying to hunt down things that I haven't done to express or find a new part of my character. So there's a bit of a running theme in our business that when it's my birthday, the company team club together for me to do something a bit stupid. So last time, I think I skydived, and then I flew a plane, and then I'm doing wing walking, and I'm like, my mindset is that I want to keep doing weird, wacky, extreme things where I feel vulnerable, because I want to go, oh, what's under that lid? And what's under that lid? And what's under that lid? Yeah. So I can keep building a strong sense of character. I can keep experiencing things that just challenge me as a person.
Hey, what would you say have been the biggest influences in that journey? Would it be Tony Robbins and the Jordan Peterson, or were there specific books or anything?
No, because that all came very late. I think I went to see a Tony Robbins event at the end of 2017.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Good timing for me, because I felt pretty broken at the end of 2017, and was very fortunate that someone that follows my work, Jess, thank you if you're watching this, she was able to get me a free ticket, and that was enough of an incentive for me to then book the flight and the accommodation to go over, because I wouldn't have been able to afford it with where I was at that point in time, and it kind of really lifted me up. Do you know what, the early days, again, it comes back to like the modelling. Like, when I was younger, I looked towards successful people and go, what do they do? What do they look like? And when I was starting off on that kind of entrepreneurial journey, I was obsessed with autobiographies. So I read all of the Dragon's Den autobiographies, all of Richard Branson's autobiographies, and I was like, modelling. What have they done? Why have they done it? What decisions did they make? Where did they go? Why did they do it? Who did they speak to? I wanted to know all of that. And I think it's a case of, if you throw enough shit at a wall, something's going to stick. So I thought, if I can analyse the brain of 50 business owners, I'm probably going to like learn some cool stuff. And I was having a chat to someone the other day who wants to be a footballer, and I was like, how many footballers' autobiographies have you read? And he was like, one. I was like, I'd go and read them all. Like, if you want it that bad, because it's a competitive market, there's a lot of people that want to be a professional footballer, it's very well paid, go and study everything that you can. And I think I just had the foresight younger to just keep trying to constantly model behaviour and learn experience of people that have been there and done it. To me, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a great strategy.
Yeah.
Find someone who has what you have, what you want, and who's in any way vaguely similar to you in terms of who you are and where you've come from and what your natural skill sets are, and then just model that behaviour, model that mindset, model that behaviour, and try to model that timeline. And like you say, you throw enough stuff at the wall, eventually a certain percentage of that is going to transpire in your life because you're modelling that psychology. Yeah,
and you see kind of consistencies in stimuluses. So I've listened to loads of business owners where they've been interviewed and they've said, give me one of your top favourite books. And loads of people have said the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, really famous book. So it took about 5 or 6 people to go, you should read that book. And I went, all right, I'll go and read that book.
Yeah.
And now I've read that book. It's one of my top 3 books.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a life book everyone has to read. So you kind of navigate this journey and I'm like, well, he said that and he said that and he said that. And they're all really successful. I should probably go and do that. I should probably go on that course or speak to that person. So you've got to pick up and be aware of all those little hints and follow that path. Because there's truth in that path.
Yeah, 100%. So, sort of in conclusion, what does the future hold for you in terms of your own kind of psychic and personal development in terms of your own psychology, and then also as a business and as a business person?
Yeah, I'm now in an interesting transition where I'm still trying to kind of reclaim a lot of what I would describe as this alpha energy in myself. So I'd say I'm still on that journey. I'm not quite there yet. I kind of feel like 93% of the way there, and I've got some more discovery to do.
Just sorry to interrupt you, but how do you mean that alpha energy? And when it was there, why did it go, and how are you getting it back?
So I would describe that sense of energy that when you get up in the morning, you're so clear about what you want to do. You're so clear about why you want to do it, and you're going to knock down doors to do it.
Yeah.
You're not going to accept no from people. You're not going to let things get in your way. You're just going to charge.
Yeah.
And at the age of 22, I had that all the way till I was the age of 30, and then shit hit the fan, and I spent 18 months kind of recovering. And through that process, there was a few other stimuluses that beat me down quite a lot. And, you know, I probably lied to myself for far too long about how it actually affected me. And it wasn't until I started to open up about 6 months ago to other people, they sort of helped me through that a little bit more. But again, you can't get that stuff back overnight. Where I'm going with my career and with my business and everything that I want to achieve for myself and my family, I need to have that like total clarity again. And it's like, again, I can feel it's like 93, 94, 95%. So I'm trying to cultivate that because I want to wake up every day and I'm like, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is what needs to be done. I've got 8 hours today to do it because that's how long I'm willing to work today, and it's getting done. And I'm nearly there, but I can feel that it needs to be savage. And I think sometimes when you want to achieve things, you've got to be quite obsessed about it. You've got to be quite savage. You've got to, get up in the morning and it's got to fill every cell in your body for you to go and do it. Now, don't get me wrong, it depends where you're going. It depends what you're trying to achieve. If someone's watching this and they're like, actually, I just want a pay rise, I'm trying to work towards that next career level, then there needs to be a certain amount of energy, focus and skills that go into that. But I'm trying to go right up here. I'm trying to build a huge brand that can be, global, that has appeal globally. We're trying to do lots of different things. I want to try and have a best-selling book, and that needs real focus. It needs real clarity. And sometimes you just got to be able to get up, block out the day, and be like, "This is what I'm doing." So that's what I'm trying to cultivate. And I know when I have that clarity, literally nothing can get in the way. And I'm not saying things are getting in the way, but there's a little bit of grey in places, and I want to get rid of it.
And you'll know intrinsically when you're at 100%.
Yeah, because I literally wake up in the morning and nothing matters. It's just getting done, and I can just feel it's a little bit on edge. I've come an awful long way.
What percentage would you say it went down to?
Like 60%. And I would say it was habit that kept me going. Habit. I could have so easily walked away from it and been far better off, emotionally, financially. But I was like, I'd be letting these down, I'd be letting my wife down, I'd be letting myself down. And half the time it was just habit of being able to get up, walk into my home office and go through those processes. But yeah, I was probably at 50, 60%.
Wow.
And I would say a couple of months ago, I was only at 80%. And I did a podcast about it, and loads of people reached out to me and they were like, yeah, I kind of feel like that as well. And I'm like, how are we going to work through it? What do we have to do? What do we have to change? So I started to make a few small tweaks. I started to expose myself to a couple of stimuluses that I knew that would help me. And the good thing is that when you kind of realise what you need, you end up doing more of it. You build up momentum, so it does become easier. So I've got a lot of my own momentum now. I don't need much else externally. I need a little bit, but I kind of feel like it's down to me, and I'm close to getting there.
It's great self-awareness, isn't it? To know when you're not at that 100% or you've let certain areas go. And it's not, sometimes it's not like letting yourself go to the point of like gaining weight or something like that, but it's like we say, it can be psychic. It can be like, I don't have what I used to have, or I don't have exactly what I could have, or I haven't had a major breakthrough psychologically or business-wise for a certain amount of time, and what do I need to do to track that back? It's like workout tracking. It's like, well, if you track your workouts and you know what was working, you can say like, well, back 18 months ago, I was in the best shape I was ever in. So I can track back to my workout logs 18 months ago, follow that, and I should get the majority of... There are other variables in life, but I should get the majority of those results. And I think when we look at life, when we zoom out and we say like, well, I was meditating, I was having this kind of communication with my partner, I was doing this, I was taking time away, I was doing this on weekends, I was spending time with the dog, that kind of stuff. Do all that again, and I'll work those percentages back up. And then, like you said, you'll know when you're back at that 100%.
Definitely. And I'm excited.
Yeah.
Because I do, and sometimes that's the thing, a lot of people sit there and go, I know that I want it, but I don't quite have it in me to get it. And you mentioned about kind of being self-aware. At that point, you've got to be really vulnerable and be able to put yourself in a situation where you probably feel uncomfortable, but you know the outcome is that it will lift you up. So it's just like talking to someone. Mental health is a big talking point in the fitness industry. It takes a lot of vulnerability to sit down and talk to someone about your mental health, but as much pain as you're going to experience at that point in time, that at the end of it you're going to feel better.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's about having the foresight and the strength of character to look beyond the process that has to happen, about where you'll probably be at the outcome phase. And it's like what I say to young kids when you're kind of going through school. Like, you and me and loads of us hated doing essays. It wasn't about the essay. Ultimately, it was about the outcome. It was like you needed a grade to get to a place. Yes, we learned some stuff along the way. Generally, we enjoyed the stuff at school where you learned and experienced stuff along the way. But when you had to do like an essay on physics or whatever, like, none of those are life skills. You just have to look beyond it to see what that thing is going to get you. And I don't think people often do that. Just stand there and go, right, I've got to do this thing to get me there. But they just look at the thing and then they get stuck at the thing. And it's not about the thing, it's about where you're going.
Yeah, 100%. That's like you say about reading the autobiographies and kind of modelling behaviour. It's that you also, as much as it's exciting to model that behaviour and that psychology, you have to also understand you have to pay that price as well. What's the price going to be for that journey? And you should try to get as much of an understanding of the price starting out so that you know that the outcome is worth the sacrifice.
I think the autobiographies kept reminding me that there's going to be a lot of hardship as well.
Yeah.
Like, being on an entrepreneurial journey is like tough. Like, there's loads of times where I've not had money to pay myself, but paying my staff, like all that kind of stuff. But you read these books and it's like, well, he's been in a lot worse situation than I have, so I'll probably be all right. Like, you look at some business owners' books and they've been bankrupt like 3 times. I'm like, they've probably made a few mistakes that they could have cleared up, but it gives you confidence that mistakes are just part of the journey, and they'll teach you stuff and you just move on.
And not just part of the journey, but an essential part of the journey.
Yeah, definitely.
In as one final question, what does your perfect day look like? So you control all the variables, you're in your own environment. What's your perfect day?
Yeah, my perfect day is always doing some form of work, because it just gives me purpose, it gives me a sense of satisfaction. So perfect day will probably be I get up at about 5 a.m, work for a good 3 or 4 hours, usually on like, really love writing. I feel like I'm contributing to the world when I write. So writing, blogging, books, that kind of stuff. Then going for a walk with my dog, like, you know, whatever. And then probably going out on a bit of an adventure outdoors, going and grabbing my canoe and going out to, you know, the local river and doing something, having a beer, having a bit of food, that kind of thing. Maybe meeting up with some friends, having a barbecue. So my day is always this amalgamation of purpose and giving, contribution, then feeling that I'm getting something back, then experiencing something with the world and the outdoors, like I love the outdoors, and then having connection with people, family, friends and food. So if I kind of get those 3 things, it's probably a pretty good day.
Perfect. Ben, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Really enjoyed speaking to you. Where's the best place to send people online to learn more about your projects and your products?
Yeah, Ben Coomber all over the internet. If you head onto social media, whatever you like enjoying, experiencing, then put Ben Coomber in, you'll find me. If people like podcasts, which I'm assuming they do because they've listened to this, then Ben Coomber Radio. Otherwise, have a little look, have a little follow, see if you like what I'm talking about, and continue to listen and hopefully learn some stuff.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe to the channel for more long-form interviews and actionable tips for all things psychology, health and business.